Hey guys, Bran here with the third video in my in the Buddha's Eightfold Path series I'm doing. Being the third video, we'll be looking at the third step, right speech. Right speech results from right thought. It follows naturally. If we develop right thought and right intention, our speech comes from our intention. So right intention obviously gives rise to right speech. In the Digha Nikaya, the Buddha says right speech is refraining from lying, refraining from slander, refraining from harsh speech, and refraining from frivolous speech. We'll look at these. These four aspects have, a positive flip side, and we can use these four aspects as questions in order to see if what we're about to say is skillful, is right speech. We can ask ourselves, is this true? Is what I'm about to say false or true? Is what I'm about to say slander? Is it malicious speech? Is there an intent behind it to harm someone? Or is it kind? Is what I'm about to say harsh, or is it gentle? And then, is what I'm about to say gossip and frivolous and meaningless, or is there a deeper meaning behind it? So these four aspects we'll be looking at in depth. These are what right speech is according to the Buddha's Eightfold Path. So the first is false speech. True is what I'm about to say true. False speech can be outright lying. It can be hyperbolizing and over-exaggerating. It could be downplaying. It's making something smaller than it actually is. And lying can also be lying by omission. If there's a crime scene and there's hundreds of witnesses and the police ask, "What did you see?" They say nothing. They're obviously lying. Someone had to have seen something, right? But the Buddha is quick to point out that omitting the truth is not necessarily lying. It can actually be helpful. In the classic case within Buddhism is a man approaches the Buddha and asks, "Is there life after death?" The Buddha doesn't give an answer, and the man after a while walks away, and the Buddha's attendant asks, "Why did you not tell him the truth about life after death?" And the Buddha answers, "Well, if I were to answer him in the affirmative to say yes, there is life after death, the man would believe that there is an eternal soul, that there's an eternal self that lives on," which is unskillful understanding within Buddhism. But he says, if I also answered, "No, there's no life after death," the man would believe, in annihilation after death, that he would be no more after death, which is also wrong, unskillful understanding in Buddhism. So instead of answering him outright and causing the man to believe these wrong views, these unskillful views that only lead to more suffering, the Buddha decided not to answer. And he did answer after the man left, and to the attendant. He explained himself. So it's more along the lines of telling the truth at the right time to the right person. There's always a wrong time to tell the truth. If you're hiding Jews and Nazis come knocking at your door, obviously telling the truth will hurt the people you're trying to help. So the second is slander or malicious speech. Bhantaji in his book tells us that when we speak malicious words, our tongues release verbal daggers. Such words rob people of their good names and credibility. Even when what we say to someone, about someone, even if it's true, if its intent is to cause harm, it is malicious. So it's really about the intent in this one. If what we're about to say is intended to cause someone harm, it's malicious speech and it's unskillful. It's only going to cause more suffering. We can see this plainly in the media. So there's a lot of mindfulness to this. You have to stop and think about what you're about to say before saying it. The third, harsh speech or harsh language. This can be habitually learned, patterns of speech, sarcasm, belittlement, abusive language, profanity, the list goes on. Usually this is what this speech feels like it accomplishes something when it doesn't. You know, if you're driving down the interstate, the highway, someone cuts you off, you start cursing and yelling at them. You feel like it's justified, that it'll help somehow. But when has it ever really helped their driving skills improve? Never in the history of the world, I'm sorry to say. Uh, the Buddha says, the fool thinks he won a battle when he bullies with harsh speech, but knowing how to be forbearing makes one victorious. I have a personal anecdote about gentle speech and harsh speech, illustrating how gentle speech is effective even in the face of harsh speech. So, at my mundane overnight bills paying job, I encountered a guest, and we don't encounter guests very often, but in this case, in this instant, I did, and this man marches up to me angry, red in the face, very frustrated, obviously angry, and he yells at me. He says, "Can I find someone to help me?" I don't know if he just couldn't find an employee to help him, but you know, he was very angry, and the way he approached me, a lot of people would probably feel, you know, on the defensive, under attack, and you know, naturally in that kind of scenario, you would respond with sarcasm, with, you know, with a defensive attitude. Maybe you will mirror his anger, you know, maybe you'll storm away angrily and, you know, leave both parties angry. But instead, I thought, well, you know, this guy's really angry. He obviously, you know, needs some kind of assistance. Answering angrily wouldn't help anything. So I said, you know, I decided to use gentle speech, and I said, I'm so sorry. You know, I apologized in the first place, and I was, you know, I was pretty genuine about the apology, and I said, what can I help you? What can I help you with? And immediately the man, you know, realized how irrationally he was acting. You know, it wasn't my fault that no one was out there to help him. And he realized that quickly, and his face, you know, his anger melted away, his tension just released. He kind of relaxed, and he almost seemed embarrassed, but mostly he seemed relieved that, you know, even when he was acting irrationally, I wasn't going to react in the same way. You know, it was safe. You know, I was a safe person to, you know, to come to. And so he, you know, loosened up, he relaxed. He's like, okay, wow, this guy's actually going to help me. Thank you. So gentleness, even in the face of in the face of harsh speech, can help, you know, soften this. And I think that's a really important thing to remember. And the fourth kind is meaningless talk, frivolous talk, gossip. We've all have heard gossip. Maybe some of us, like me, have been, you know, the victim of gossip. But gossip here really covers foolish or meaningless talk. You know, even if it's true, there's a malicious intent behind it. But most of the time, it's not even true. There's no basis in reality. It's being said for some weird reason, boredom. You know, just something to stir up conflict or something. And to illustrate this, Jean Smith in her book, The Beginner's Guide to Walking the Buddha's Eightfold Path, she brings up this experiment, this mindfulness experiment that Joseph Goldstein, this insight meditation guy and author, he tried this experiment for a few months where he wouldn't speak in the third person. So that means he wouldn't speak about anyone unless they were present. And the surprising results of this experiment was that most of his speech just wasn't there. He didn't speak all that much. And it made him realize, wow, I speak way too much about other people. Like, I'm, you know, a lot of what I'm saying is meaningless, is, you know, frivolous. I'm just saying it just to say something. And, you know, of course, speaking about other people, you know, stop speaking about other people isn't as realistic all the time. But this brings, you know, this helps us realize a lot of what we say is meaningless. So maybe you want to try this for a day, for a week, for a few months, like Joseph Goldstein did. I think it's a really, really cool and valuable experiment to try. Gene Smith also brings up the point of listening. Listening can be a really big part of right speech. If we don't stop to listen to what's actually being said, we won't know how to truly respond skillfully. And they say we only listen to in order to respond. But if we stop to truly listen, we'll be able to know how to respond correctly, skillfully. So yeah, in conclusion, right speech is the four parts of it. Truthfulness, is what I'm about to say true or false. Kindness is what I'm about to say kind, or is it slander? Is it malicious? The gentleness of speech is what I'm about to say gentle, or is it harsh? Meaningfulness of speech is what I'm about to say meaningful, or is it just frivolous, meaningless gossip? Really good questions to ask yourself, and asking yourself those will help cultivate mindfulness of your speech, which mindfulness is a huge part of the Eightfold Path. So that's right speech in a nutshell. Next video we'll be looking at right action. I hope that if you have to say something, you say it skillfully and mindfully.